All right, we'll say good morning. Good morning. I wanted to get back a little bit to Oros HaTeshuva, and then just a few moments this morning getting back into Rav Kook. I know we started this as an avoda during Elul, but I think there's so much that Oros HaTeshuva has to offer us. And Rav Kook's whole premise is that tshuva is not just simply even about sin, but rather, again, tshuva is about a movement in life. As such, I've never done this part personally. I've never learned Oros HaTeshuva outside of Elul and Yom Noraim. So I'm actually very excited to, or I should say in preparation for Elul Yom Noraim. So I'm very excited to, Me'ez Hashem, continue this through. Also, it's important to note that it is almost Elul. It's almost Elul. So because it's almost Elul, it's time for us to get a little bit of a head start in Me'ez Hashem. So I really feel we're really just, this is good preparation. So today we're going to spend a few moments on Perek Daled. Perek Daled, chapter 4 in Oros HaTeshuva. I sent it out on the WhatsApp chat last night. So here, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece. So the title of the Perek is, and again, we're going to take our time. We're not going to rush it. But look at the title. He says HaTeshuva HaPratis HaYechidis, so which literally means specific individual tshuva, VaTeshuva HaKlalis HaTziburis HaOlamis, and general communal universal tshuva, ba'olam u'b'knesses Yisrael, in the world and for the Jewish people. Okay, forget about anything else, just the title. Just the title is so hey. So look at Rav Kook. It says, Shotkim heim zarmei tshuva. Also, understand one of the beautiful things and also one of the complicated things about Oros HaTeshuva is the style of Rav Kook's writing. Right? This is written as poetry. It's written as poetry. So even look at this. Shotkim heim zarmei tshuva. The waves of tshuva flow through the universe. They flow through the universe. Hapratis va'klalis, individually and universally. Dimyonam kigali shalhavo shal guf hashemesh. The waves of tshuva are like the waves of bright light that run down the sun, that are on the top, that are on the sun. Asher b'melchemes ad hemispartzim va'olim. In an eternal war, they come up and they go down. Now, what he's referring to over here is the imagery of a wave, right? What does a wave do? A wave I don't know the technical term, right? It goes up, right? It gathers momentum, and then it crashes down. He says, tshuva. Now, again, we're going to see what type of tshuva he's referring to over here. Tshuva is very much that same way. It's asher b'melchemes ad. Tshuva as an entity is in an eternal war. Mispartzim va'olim. Ultimately, again, they gather up strength, they go up. And when the wave gathers energy, ultimately, again, it provides life. It provides life to the multitudes of worlds and to all creations beyond number. What is he talking about? If you take a look in footnote number 1, this is really a beautiful idea, and this is a cornerstone of Rav Kook's thoughts. He says as follows: Ha'adam eino hamakara biladi shel tshuva. He says when we think about tshuva as a man-made process, right? In other words, what's tshuva? We'll say, what's tshuva? I commit an avera, and so I do tshuva. That's what happens. Rav Kook says tshuva isn't only about man. Ha'adam eino hamakara biladi shel tshuva. Man is not the only source of tshuva. He says, Koach HaTeshuva matzoi af bebriya. There's a concept of tshuva that is found in nature. What does this mean? Hamaniya as hanivraim kulam lashov lishleimusam. All of nature, if you look at nature as a whole, nature is always growing and diminishing. Right? So you think about now, we're in the middle now of like this seasonal change, right? And so you see what happens. The trees, just a little while ago, were so beautiful, so vibrant. Now they're losing their leaves. Nature itself is always growing and diminishing. Koach tshuva zu, and therefore there's a concept of tshuva in the world, which allows the world itself to return to what it once was. Koach HaTeshuva zoi tshuva shekal olam. So ultimately, again, this is the tshuva where Chazal talk about the idea that tshuva pre-existed the world. Now, what does that mean? We actually spoke about this in the beginning of Oros HaTeshuva. Rav Kook says in his introduction, if you remember, that we often think of tshuva ultimately again as the remedy to sin. The only issue is that Chazal tell us that tshuva pre-existed the world. Well, if tshuva pre-existed the world, that means tshuva pre-existed sin. If tshuva pre-existed sin, that must mean that there's a concept of tshuva that's independent of human sin. He goes on, B'terem haram yuladu, tashav enosh adaka, v'atamer shuva b'nei adam. As the pasuk says, even before the mountains were created, the voice came out and said, man, to return. Yes, sir, Al came. So again, I will say, so this concept, so of Cook highlighting this concept of universal tshuva, worldly tshuva, that was there before man, that therefore again precedes the concept of sin. Before there was sin in the world, there was tshuva, which means that tshuva is this power, tshuva is this drive, tshuva is this force, bringing things back to their original state. Yes, sir, Al came. Ratzon ha'adam k'shali atzmo, lelo siyua shel koach hatshuva, hashodei ba'olamim, lo haya yochal lehiskar be'al pigmei ha'adam v'chol sheken al pigmei ha'aviyah. Al kain, mikubalim anu shebai l'tar mesayin oso. So this is incredible. So he says, furthermore, if you think about what I'm saying, one of the hardest things in the world, the hardest things in life is change. Change itself is the hardest thing. Like the Ramchal writes in the introduction to Mesilas Yesharim, it is easier to go ahead and learn Kala Torah Kula than it is to go ahead and change one thing about yourself. We know this, right? I can finish Shas sooner, right, with great ease, as we've done, Baruch Hashem, with great ease, than it is to change one character trait within myself. Sort of Cook says something so beautiful. He says, therefore, when man does tshuva, ratzona adam kishali atzmo, man's own tshuva by itself, lelo siyua shel koach hatshuva shar ba'olamim, lo yohaya yochol lehiskabra apigmei adam v'choshkin apigmei aviyah. Man's tshuva by itself, without being aided by the universal force of tshuva, would be ineffective. And this is really incredible. We have to stop over here for today. Right, but what Rav Kook is highlighting is the tshuva that we do only works because we start a process, and ultimately that process is aided by this force of universal tshuva. The same force that ultimately causes the trees to replenish, the same force that causes the fruit to regrow, the same force that ultimately again causes the grass to turn green again in Meretz Hashem after the cold. That koach of tshuva, which is embedded in the world, is the very universal force, ultimately, that helps us do our tshuva. Now, how man taps into that force? Tomorrow morning in Meretz Hashem. See. For today, we'll say, I have to spend a little more, but